James Carter, a ferocious black businessman on the cusp of claiming police chief supremacy, teeters at destiny's razor edge. On a forsaken snow-lashed highway in a podunk American wasteland where bone-chilling winds carve like blades and shadows cloak atrocities. Two power-mad rogue cops bloated with prejudice and bile slam James to his knees, snarling for push-ups in the icy muck to prove he's no menace of barbaric racial torment. Their sadism erupts into apocalypse badges torn off by their humiliated foe. Shock waves obliterate a putrid system, igniting a ferocious justice war that scars the community forever. Can his rage demolish abuse's fortress? Grip tight. Where you witnessing this, drop your spot below. Picture a desolate highway slicing through the outskirts of a small American town, cloaked in midnight darkness. Snow falls relentlessly, blanketing the asphalt in a shimmering, icy shroud. The wind howls a bitter gust that stings the skin and rattles the bones. It's the kind of night where silence feels oppressive, broken only by the occasional crunch of snow underfoot or the distant wail of the wind. On this frozen stretch of road, James Carter, a black businessman in a tailored suit, finds himself stranded. His sleek sedan, a symbol of his hard-earned success, sputters and dies, its engine-warning light glowing ominously. Exhausted from a grueling day of meetings downtown, all James wants is to get home, sink into his leather couch, and let the weight of the day slip away. But fate has other plans. The cold bites at his fingers as he pops the hood, his breath clouding in the frigid air. James isn't a mechanic. His expertise lies in boardrooms, not engines, but he's got no choice. The nearest town is miles away, and his phone signal is a faint whisper, barely clinging to life. He tugs his coat tighter, the wool offering little defense against the sub-zero chill. The road is empty, the stars obscured by heavy clouds, leaving him alone in a sea of darkness. That is until twin beams of light pierce the night, growing closer. A vehicle approaches, and for a fleeting moment, hope flickers in James's chest. Help, maybe. But as the patrol car's red and blue lights flash into view, that hope curdles into dread. Two officers step out, their boots crunching on the snow. William Hayes, a grizzled veteran with a weathered face and a permanent scowl, leads the way. His eyes cold as the night itself size James up with undisguised contempt. Beside him is Daniel Reed, younger, leaner, with a cocky swagger and a smirk that screams trouble. Their badges glint under the patrol car's headlights, but there's no reassurance in their presence. James, standing by his broken-down car, feels the weight of their gazes. As a black man, alone on a deserted road, he knows the script all too well. He keeps his hands visible, his posture non-threatening, but his heart thumps harder. This isn't just about a broken car anymore. What's a guy like you doing out here? William's voice is gravelly, laced with suspicion. Before James can answer, Daniel cuts in his tone, dripping with venom. Lost, huh? Or maybe you don't belong here, boy. The word lands like a slap, raw and deliberate. James's jaw tightens, but he forces his voice to stay even. My car broke down after a meeting. I'm just trying to fix it. His words are calm, measured, but inside a storm brews. He's faced prejudice before whispers and boardroom sidelong glances. But this is different. This is predatory. William steps closer, his flashlight blinding James, forcing him to squint. Fix it. You. He snorts the sound, heavy with mockery. Step away from the car. Now. James complies, his movements slow, deliberate. He knows one wrong move could escalate this into something far worse. Daniel circles him like a vulture, his eyes gleaming with malice. fancy suit, fancy car, he sneers. Doesn't mean you're clean. Without warning, William shoves James hard, sending him stumbling backward into the snow. The impact jars his shoulder pain, shooting through his arm. Before he can recover, Daniel's fist connects with his shoulder, a sharp, deliberate blow that sends him to his knees. "Do some push-ups," William barks his voice a cruel command. "Prove you're not a threat, or we'll assume you're trouble." The snow seeps through James's pants, numbing his knees, but the real sting is the humiliation. Daniel laughs a harsh, guttural sound. "Go on, boy. Show us you're not just another thug." The racial slur cuts deeper than the cold, each word a blade slicing into James's pride. He places his hands on the icy ground, the gravel biting into his palms, and begins the push-ups. Each movement is agony, not just from the cold, but from the weight of their hatred. His mind races torn between fury and restraint. He could fight back years of boxing in college, make it tempting, but he knows better. Not here, not now. What they don't know, what they can't possibly suspect, is that James Carter isn't just a stranded businessman. In a matter of hours, he'll be their new police chief, the man who'll hold their careers in his hands. The irony burns as fiercely as the cold. Every insult, every shove is fuel for the fire growing inside him. He keeps his face blank, his breathing steady, but his resolve hardens with each push-up. These men, with their badges and their bigotry, have no idea who they're humiliating. They think they're untouchable, wielding their authority like a club. But James knows the truth, their time is running out. William looms over him, his flashlight trained on James's face, mocking his effort. Weak, figures. Daniel kicks a spray of snow into James's eyes, the icy grains stinging like needles. James blinks through the pain, his arms trembling but refusing to give out. He's not just enduring this for himself. He's enduring it for every person who's faced this kind of cruelty, for every moment of injustice he's witnessed in a world that too often looks the other way. He finishes the push-ups, rising slowly, his suit soaked and his hands raw. William smirks, satisfied. "Get your car fixed and get out of here," he growls. "Next time you won't be so lucky." As the officers retreat to their patrol car, their laughter echoing in the night. James stands tall, his breath visible in the freezing air. The humiliation stings, but it's nothing compared to the resolve now etched into his soul. He'll see them again, not as a victim, but as their judge. As James endures their cruelty, a secret about his power promises to flip the script, leading to a showdown brimming with tension. The snow falls heavier now, blanketing the lonely highway in a relentless, suffocating white. The cold is a living thing clawing at James Carter's skin as he kneels on the frozen ground, the gravel biting into his palms like tiny shards of glass. The patrol car's headlights cast a harsh glow, illuminating the scene in the stark relief, turning the night into a stage for cruelty. James's suit, once pristine, is soaked through, clinging to his shivering frame. Above him, officers William Hayes and Daniel Reed loom, their silhouettes menacing against the swirling snow. The air is thick with their malice, a toxic brew of power and prejudice. James's car, dead behind him, is a silent witness to the ordeal unfolding. His breath clouds in the frigid air, each exhale a reminder of the rage he's forcing down deep into his core. William, his face carved with years of unchecked authority, steps. Closer, his boots crunching deliberately on the icy road. His eyes glint with a cruel satisfaction, the kind that comes from wielding power over someone he deems beneath him. "You heard me," he growls, his voice low and guttural like a predator savoring its prey. "Keep going. More push-ups. Or maybe you're too weak for it, huh? Before James can respond, William's boot slams into his back, a vicious kick that sends him sprawling face first into the snow. The impact steals his breath pain radiating through his spine. The cold seeps deeper, numbing his body, but not his anger. Daniel, younger and leaner, laughs a sharp, mocking sound that cuts through the wind. "What's wrong, trash? Thought you people were tougher than this." He sneers, his words dripping with racial venom. James pushes himself up, his hands trembling as they press against the jagged ice. Blood trickles from a cut on his palm, warm against the frozen ground. He wants to lash out, to unleash the strength he honed in college boxing rings, but he knows the cost. One wrong move and this night could end in a hospital or worse. Instead, he locks eyes with the ground, his jaw clenched tight. His father's voice echoes in his mind, steady and resolute. "Don't let them provoke you. Stay strong, son." It's a mantra that's carried him through countless slights, from subtle boardroom snubs to overt hostility. But tonight, it feels like a chain, holding back a storm. He resumes the push-ups, each movement a battle against pain and pride, his muscles screaming under the strain. Daniel isn't done. He scoops a handful of snow and hurls it into James's face, the icy grains stinging his eyes and nose. "Look at you thinking you're somebody," he taunts, circling like a hyena. "You don't belong on this road. You don't belong anywhere near here." The words are a knife, each one slicing into James's dignity. He blinks through the snow, his vision blurred, but his resolve unshaken. What these men don't know, what they can't possibly imagine, is that James isn't just a man stranded in the cold. Tomorrow, he'll walk into their police station as their new chief, a fact that burns like a beacon in his mind. Every insult, every blow is a debt they'll pay when the tables turn. William crouches beside him, his breath sour with coffee and contempt. "Hurry it up," he snaps, grabbing James's collar and yanking him upward, forcing him to meet his gaze. "You think you're smart, don't you? All dressed up driving that fancy car, but you're nothing out here." He shoves James back down the force, sending a jolt through his already aching body. James grits his teeth, his arms burning as he continues the humiliating exercise. The snow soaks through his knees, the cold, a relentless torment, but it's the weight of their hatred that truly tests him. He's faced prejudice before, but this is raw, unfiltered, a reminder of how little has changed for men like him in places like this. Daniel steps closer, his boot nudging James's side, not hard enough to bruise, but enough to degrade. "Maybe we should take you in," he says, his voice laced with mock concern. "Make sure you're not carrying anything dangerous." The threat hangs heavy, a promise of worse to come if James resists. But resistance isn't his plan, not yet. He focuses on his breathing steady and controlled, each inhale fueling his determination. He thinks of his family, his wife, Sarah, his 2 children waiting at home, unaware of the ordeal he's enduring. He thinks of the badge he'll wear tomorrow, the power it will give him to right these wrongs. That thought keeps him grounded, keeps him from breaking. Finally, William steps back, his flashlight sweeping over James's trembling form. "That's enough," he says, his tone dismissive, as if James is no longer worth their time. "Fix your damn car and stay out of trouble. We'll be watching." Daniel spits into the snow, a final act of disrespect, before both officers turn back to their patrol car. Their laughter carries on the wind as they climb inside the engine, roaring to life. James rises slowly, his body aching, his hands bloodied and numb. He watches their taillights disappear into the night, the snow swallowing their tracks. The humiliation burns, but it's nothing compared to the fire now blazing in his heart. He brushes the snow from his suit, his movements deliberate, his eyes hard with purpose. This isn't just about him anymore. It's about every person who's been demeaned, dismissed, or brutalized by those meant to protect. As he climbs back into his car, the cold steel of the door grounding him, James makes a silent vow. He'll carry this night with him not as a wound, but as a weapon. Tomorrow he'll face William and Daniel again, not as their victim, but as their reckoning. Can James endure this brutal attack to seize his chance for retribution? Escaping this night of shame, James steps into his first day as police chief, ready to make his enemies pay. The police station hums with restless energy, its fluorescent lights casting a sterile glow over scuffed linoleum floors and cluttered desks. It's early morning, and the air buzzes with whispers, rumors of a new chief swirling like smoke among the officers. Some lean against walls, sipping burnt coffee, while others huddle in tight knots, speculating about the stranger who'll soon take command. The atmosphere is a cocktail of curiosity and unease, the kind that settles over a place when change is imminent. In a corner, William Hayes and Daniel Reed stand apart, their postures stiff, their voices low. Their faces still carry the smugness of last night's cruelty, but there's a flicker of nerves in their eyes, a hint they sense something shifting. They don't yet know the storm that's about to break over them. The double doors swing open, and James Carter steps into the room. His presence is like a thunderclap, silencing the chatter in an instant. He's tall, his broad shoulders filling out the crisp lines of his chief's uniform, the badge on his chest gleaming with authority. His face is composed, but his eyes burn with a quiet intensity, a fire forged in the snow of the previous night. Every officer turns their gazes locking onto him, some with curiosity, others with wariness. James moves with deliberate grace, each step measured as if he's claiming the space. The room feels smaller under his command, the air heavier. He's no longer the man kneeling in the snow, bloodied and humiliated. He's something else entirely, a force they can't yet comprehend. William and Daniel tucked in their corner freeze as recognition hits. Their eyes widen the color draining from their faces like water from a cracked glass. William's thick jaw tightens his mustache, twitching as he forces a grin, but it's a fragile mask barely hiding the panic beneath. Daniel's hands fidget, his usual arrogance replaced by a nervous twitch as he avoids James's gaze. They know him not as their chief, but as the man they shoved to the ground, the man they mocked and degraded. The memory of their laughter hangs between them now, a noose tightening around their necks. James's eyes sweep the room, pausing just long enough on them to send a shiver down their spines. They're not in control anymore. James steps to the podium, his posture unyielding, his voice steady but laced with steel. "Good morning," he begins his words, cutting through the silence like a blade. "I'm James Carter, your new chief. I didn't come here to play games or make friends. I'm here to rebuild this department, to root out corruption, and to ensure justice isn't just a word we throw around." He pauses, letting the weight of his promise settle. The officers shift in their seats, some nodding, others glancing at William and Daniel, sensing the undercurrent of tension. This station will stand for integrity. James continues, his voice rising slightly, each syllable deliberate. No one will abuse their power under my watch. Not now, not ever." The room is a pressure cooker, the air thick with unspoken questions. Who is this man? What does he know? William tries to hold his ground, his arms crossed, his grin forced, but his eyes betray him, darting nervously. Daniel stares at the floor, his fingers clenching and unclenching as if he's trying to grip his fading confidence. They thought they'd humiliated a nobody, a faceless target for their prejudice. Now that nobody stands before them wielding the power to dismantle their world, the irony is a bitter pill, and it's lodged in their throats. James's gaze lingers on them for a moment longer, a silent promise that their actions won't be forgotten. It's a look that says he sees them, knows them, and will hold them accountable. Beside James Thomas Brooks, a veteran officer with graying temples and a steady demeanor steps forward. His face is weathered but kind, his eyes carrying the weight of years spent watching the department slide into complacency. Chief Carter. He says, his voice clear and firm. I've served here for 20 years. I've seen good men and bad, but I believe you're the leader we need. I'm with you, and I know others are too. His words are a lifeline, a public declaration of loyalty that shifts the room's dynamic. Officers murmur, some nodding, others exchanging glances. Thomas's support isn't just a gesture. It's a signal that James isn't alone, that the tide is turning. James nods at Thomas, a flicker of gratitude in his eyes, but his focus remains on the room. We have work to do, he says, his tone unwavering. This department serves the community, not itself. If you're here to protect and serve, you'll have my respect. If you're here to exploit or harm, you'll answer to me. The words land like a gavel, final and unyielding. The officers feel the dawning realization that this isn't just another chief passing through. James is a reckoning, a man who carries the scars of their failures and the will to change them. William's forced smile falters. His hands drop into his sides. Daniel shifts his weight, his eyes darting toward the exit, as if he could escape the weight of James's words. They know what they did last night, the slurs, the violence, the power they wielded without question. Now that power feels like a trap closing around them. The other officers sense it too, their whispers growing quieter, their eyes sharper. James doesn't mention the highway, doesn't need to. His presence is accusation enough, a promise of justice that hangs in the air like a storm about to break. As James steps down from the podium, the room remains hushed, the weight of his words lingering. He's set the stage, drawn the line, and the battle has begun. William and Daniel exchange a glance. Their fear, now a tangible thing, but they're not ready to surrender. Not yet. James, however, is just getting started. How will the men who humiliated James react now that he's their new boss? With power in his hands, James quietly sets in motion a plan to expose William and Daniel's racist abuses. The police station feels like a pressure cooker, its narrow hallways and cramped meeting rooms thick with tension. The fluorescent lights hum overhead, casting stark shadows on faded posters about duty and honor. Officers move quietly, their footsteps muffled, their conversations hushed, as if the walls themselves are listening. In the days since James Carter's arrival as chief, the air has shifted. Hope mingles with fear, anticipation with dread. Small groups gather in corners, their voices low, sharing stories they've long kept buried. The station, once a fortress of routine, now hums with the promise of upheaval. James, with his commanding presence and unyielding resolve, has stirred something deep, something that threatens to upend the old ways. He's not just a new face, he's a mirror reflecting the department's flaws back at itself. James sits at the head of a meeting room, the table scratched and worn from years of use. His uniform is crisp, his posture steady, but his eyes are sharp, scanning the faces of the officers before him. Thomas Brooks. His trusted ally sits to his right, his weathered face a map of experience and quiet strength. Other officers fill the chairs, some leaning forward, eager for change, others slouched wary of what it might cost. James's voice is calm but firm, each word chosen with care. "We're here to talk about what it means to serve," he says, pausing to let the words sink in. "Not just to wear a badge, but to protect, to uphold justice. I want to hear from you, your challenges, your frustrations, what's stopping us from being the department this community deserves." The room stirs a ripple of unease passing through. Officers glance at one another, hesitant. They've heard promises before, seen leaders come and go, but James is different. His sincerity, his disarming, his gaze piercing. A young officer, his hands fidgeting, speaks first. "Sometimes things get swept under the rug," he says, his voice barely above a whisper. "Certain officers, they do things that aren't right." The words hang heavy, a crack in the dam. James nods, encouraging his expression open but resolute. "Go on," he says softly. "You're safe here." The officer hesitates, then spills a story: a black teenager detained without cause, roughed up in an alley called Scum by Daniel Reed. The room tenses, the air electric with the weight of truth. Another officer, older, with tired eyes, adds to the flood. "It's not just one time," she says, her voice trembling but gaining strength. "William Hayes, he's got a reputation. Pulls over black drivers, makes up reasons, scares them into silence. Calls them lowlifes to their faces." The words are a spark igniting murmurs among the group. James listens, his face a mask of calm, but inside his heart pounds. The stories confirm what he suspected, what he felt in his bones that night on the highway. The department isn't just flawed, it's rotten from within, poisoned by men like William and Daniel, who wield their badges as weapons. Thomas leans forward, his voice steady but fierce. "I've seen it too," he says, his eyes sweeping the room. "For years, I watched good officers stay quiet, afraid to speak up. But that ends now. Chief Carter's here to change things, and I'm with him." His words bolster the room, a call to courage that resonates. A civilian invited to share steps forward, a local mechanic. His hands calloused, his voice raw. "Daniel Reed stopped me last year," he says, his eyes locked on James. "Asked for my ID, said I looked suspicious. When I asked why he punched me in the gut, told me to shut up or I'd regret it. Said I was nothing but trouble." The room falls silent, the brutality of the act sinking in. James's jaw tightens, but he keeps his composure, his voice even. "Thank you for sharing," he says, his words a lifeline to the man's pain. No one should live in fear of those meant to protect them. He turns to the officers, his gaze unwavering. "This department will not tolerate abuse. We're building something better, but I need your help. If you know something, say it. If you've seen something, report it. Together, we can root this out." His words are a challenge, a promise. And slowly, more voices join the chorus. Stories pour out: false arrests, racial slurs, threats to keep victims quiet. Each tale is a brick in the case. James is building a case that will bury William and Daniel. Behind the scenes, James and Thomas work tirelessly, compiling evidence with meticulous care. Thomas, with his decades of experience, knows where to look: incident reports that don't add up, complaints buried in files. He brings James a stack of documents, his face grim. "This is just the start," he says. "They've been at it for years, thinking they're untouchable." James flips through the pages, his eyes scanning accounts of harassment, each one a stab at his resolve. He thinks of the highway, the snow, the blood on his hands. This isn't just about him. It's about every person these men have hurt, every life they've scarred with their hatred. The officers' stories paint a picture of a department corrupted by silence where fear of retaliation kept truth at bay. But James's presence is a catalyst breaking that silence. His calm authority, his refusal to look away, emboldens those who've long felt powerless. A female officer shares a memory of William intimidating a black family, mocking their accents, threatening jail time for a minor traffic stop. Another recalls Daniel's laughter as he recounted teaching a lesson to a protester. The accounts pile up, each one a nail in the coffin of the two officers' reign. James closes the meeting, his voice steady but charged with purpose. "We're not just cleaning house," he says. "We're rebuilding trust. That starts with honesty, with facing the truth, no matter how ugly." The officers nod, some with newfound resolve, others with unease, knowing the storm that's coming. James and Thomas exchange a glance, a silent pact to see this through. The evidence is mounting, and the noose is tightening. What horrifying secrets about William and Daniel will James uncover? As the evidence stacks up, William and Daniel feel cornered, leading to a reckless reaction. The police station's break room smells of stale coffee and tension, its walls lined with chipped paint and faded motivational posters. The hum of a vending machine competes with the low murmur of officers, their voices taut with unease. It's midday, and the air feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to snap. The whispers of change sparked by James Carter's arrival have grown louder, threading through every conversation. Officers who once turned a blind eye now exchange wary glances, their loyalty to the old guard fraying. In this cramped, overheated room, the fault lines of the department are exposed, and William Hayes and Daniel Reed stand at the center, their authority crumbling like dry clay. William leans against a counter, his thick arms crossed his face, a mask of forced confidence. His eyes, though, betray him, darting restless, searching for allies. Daniel slouches nearby, his usual swagger dulled, replaced by a nervous energy that makes his fingers twitch. The stories shared in James's meetings have spread like wildfire, tales of their abuses no longer buried. The break room, once their domain, feels hostile. Now the other officers' sidelong glances sharp as knives. A young officer, barely out of the academy, sets down his coffee mug, his face pale but resolute. "Things are changing," he says, his voice low but firm. The chief's not letting stuff slide anymore. The words are a spark, and William's head snaps up, his eyes narrowing. Changing William's voice is a low growl, heavy with menace. He steps forward, looming over the younger man. "You think you can side with that outsider?" He slams his fist on the table, the impact rattling cups and silence in the room. "You're either with us or against us, kid. Choose wisely." The young officer flinches but holds his ground, his jaw tight. The air crackles with hostility. The other officers frozen, their eyes darting between William and the door. Daniel steps in, his smirk forced, his voice dripping with disdain. "Don't get cocky just because Carter's stirring things up," he says. "He won't last." But his words lack conviction, and the room senses it, a shift in power, a crack in their armor. The confrontation spills into the station's parking lot as dusk settles the sky-bruised purple, the asphalt slick with melting snow. Sodium lights buzz overhead, casting long shadows that twist like specters. James, his coat slung over his arm, heads to his car, his mind on the evidence piling up against William and Daniel. He's almost there when their voices cut through the evening chill. "Going somewhere," Carter Williams' tone is a blade sharp and threatening. James turns his expression calm, but his eyes hard as steel. The two officers block his path, William's bulk dominating the space, Daniel hovering like a vulture, his fists clenched. The lot is empty. The station's windows dark, leaving them alone in this simmering standoff. William steps closer. His breath visible in the cold, his face twisted with defiance. "You think you can waltz in here and play king?" he snarls, raising a fist, the knuckles scarred from years of unchecked aggression. "This station's ours. You're nothing but a problem that needs fixing." His words carry the weight of a man who's never been challenged, who believes his badge makes him untouchable. James stands his ground, his posture relaxed but unyielding, his voice steady as granite. "I'm not going anywhere," he says, each word deliberate, a challenge that cuts through William's bravado. "You don't own this place, not anymore." The words land like a blow, and William's fist twitches, itching to strike. Daniel, emboldened by William's anger, steps forward, his eyes glinting with malice. "You're out of your depth, Carter," he says, his voice low and venomous. "Keep pushing and you'll see what happens to people who don't know their place." The threat is raw, laced with the same prejudice that fueled their attack on the highway. James's gaze doesn't waver, his calm, a stark contrast to their rage. He sees the fear behind their bluster, the desperation of men who know their time is running out. "You're the ones who don't belong," he says, his voice cold, precise. "This department's done protecting your kind of justice." The standoff stretches, the silence heavy with the promise of violence. William's fist hovers, his breath ragged, but something in James's unflinching stare holds him back. The other officers, watching from the station's entrance, murmur among themselves, their loyalty to William and Daniel eroding. Thomas Brooks steps into the lot, his presence a quiet anchor. "Everything all right, Chief?" he asks, his voice steady, but pointed, his eyes locked on William. The question breaks the tension, forcing William to lower his fist, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Daniel mutters something under his breath, stepping back, his bravado crumbling. James nods at Thomas, his expression unchanged. "Just a conversation," he says, his voice carrying a warning. "For now." He turns to his car, his movements deliberate, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing him rattled. William and Daniel stand frozen, their power slipping through their fingers like sand. The other officers drift away, their whispers louder, now their respect for James growing with each passing moment. The lot feels colder, emptier, as the two rogue officers realize they're losing their grip. Their defiance, once a weapon, now feels like a trap closing around them. James slides into his car, the engine humming to life. He glances at William and Daniel through the rearview mirror, their silhouettes stark against the fading light. They're not done fighting, he knows that, but neither is he. The stories he's heard, the evidence he's gathered, they're building a case that will bury them. He's not just fighting for himself, but for every person they've hurt, every life they've tarnished with their hatred. The parking lot fades behind him, but the battle is far from over. Will William and Daniel dare to attack James to cling to their power? Their defiance pushes James to a decision to expose their crimes to the public, preparing for a major showdown. The auditorium in the police station crackles with anticipation, its air thick with the scent of sweat and static from camera flashes. Rows of folding chairs are packed with officers, their uniforms crisp, but their faces taut, alongside community leaders whose eyes burn with years of unspoken grievances. Reporters line the walls, their notebooks, open pens poised, sensing a story that could ignite headlines. Overhead, harsh fluorescent lights cast a clinical glow, amplifying every whisper, every shift in posture. The room is a tinderbox, and James Carter, standing at the podium, holds the match. His chief's uniform fits him like armor, his presence a quiet storm that commands silence without a word. Today, he's not just a leader, he's a judge ready to lay bare the rot festering in the department. James grips the podium, his knuckles steady, his gaze sweeping the crowd. Thomas Brooks stands to his left, his weathered face a pillar of support, his eyes reflecting pride in the man beside him. The audience waits, breath held as James begins, his voice resonant, cutting through the tension like a blade. "We're here to face the truth," he says, pausing to let the words settle. "This department has failed our community. Not all of us, but some. And those who've betrayed their oath will answer for it." The crowd stirs, officers glancing at one another, residents nodding with cautious hope. James's eyes find William Hayes and Daniel Reed seated near the front, their faces rigid with defiance but betraying cracks of fear. He raises a remote, and the screen behind him flickers to life. A grainy video plays its audio tinny but unmistakable. William's voice fills the room sneering, "These people are trash, nothing but trouble." Gasps ripple through the crowd as the footage shows him berating a black pedestrian, his words laced with venom. James pauses the video, his voice steady but searing. This isn't protection, this is prejudice. He switches to a report projected large detailing Daniel's assault on a local vendor, punches thrown for questioning a stop. The crowd murmurs anger rising like heat. William leaps to his feet, his face flushed, his voice a desperate roar. "That's a lie," he shouts, but his tremor betrays him. "You're twisting it." The room erupts, voices clashing, but James raises a hand, his authority silencing the chaos. "Sit down," he says, his tone icy, unyielding. William hesitates, his fists clenched, then sinks back, his defiance wilting under the weight of the evidence. Daniel beside him shrinks, his eyes darting toward the exit like a trapped animal. He lurches to his feet, shoving past chairs, his face pale with panic. "I'm not staying for this," he mutters. But two security officers block his path, their expressions stern. The crowd watches riveted as Daniel's escape crumbles. He slumps back, defeated, his bravado gone. The drama is electric. The room, a crucible where truth burns away lies. James steps forward, his voice rising, each word a hammer, striking the anvil of justice. "This isn't just about two officers," he says, his eyes locked on the crowd. "It's about a system that let racism hide behind a badge. That ends today." He points to the screen, now displaying testimonies, pages of sworn statements from residents detailing years of harassment, slurs, and fear. A community leader, a gray-haired woman in the front row, wipes tears from her eyes, her nod a silent thank you. Officers shift uncomfortably, some with shame, others with resolve. The weight of James's words presses down, exposing the department's failures in stark relief. William, his face a mask of rage, interrupts again, his voice hoarse. "You won't win, Carter," he bellows, standing once more, his finger jabbing the air. "You think you can tear us down. This town needs us." The crowd jeers, residents shouting back their voices a chorus of defiance. James meets William's glare, his expression unyielding, his voice a quiet thunder. "Justice doesn't belong to you," he says, each syllable a verdict. "It belongs to the people you swore to protect and failed." The words land like a gavel, silencing William, who sinks into his seat, his face ashen, his power stripped bare. The audience erupts in applause, the sound swelling like a tide. Residents stand their claps, a release of years of frustration, while reporters scribble furiously, capturing the moment. Officers, some hesitant, join in their applause, a tentative step toward change. Thomas steps forward, his voice clear, amplifying James's message. "This is a new day," he says, his eyes sweeping the room. "We stand with Chief Carter to rebuild trust, to serve with honor." The crowd roars louder, the energy palpable, a collective awakening. James stands tall, his face composed but his heart racing, knowing this moment is a turning point, not just for him, but for the entire community. He thinks of the nights he spent poring over evidence, the faces of those who trusted him with their stories. This isn't just a victory over two rogue officers. It's a promise to those who've suffered in silence, a vow to dismantle the prejudice that's poisoned the badge. The crowd's cheers are a balm, but James knows the fight isn't over. William and Daniel, their faces twisted with humiliation, glare at him, their eyes burning with a dangerous resolve. They've lost this battle, but their defeat has ignited something darker, something that won't rest. James closes the meeting, his voice steady, resolute. We move forward together. He says his words a beacon. No more fear, no more silence, only justice. The crowd rises their applause, a thunderous affirmation. He steps from the podium, his mission clear, his resolve unbroken. The truth is out, and the department will never be the same. Can James's evidence topple the corrupt officers once and for all? After their public exposure, William and Daniel plot revenge, pushing the conflict to a dangerous peak. Rain lashes against the suburban home of James Carter, a modest two-story house nestled in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of town. Thunder rumbles, shaking the windows while lightning splits the sky, casting jagged shadows across the living room. The clock ticks past midnight, and the storm outside mirrors the turmoil brewing within. Inside, the house is warm, a haven of soft lamplight and family photos lining the walls. Sarah, James's wife, sits on the couch, her hands clasped tightly, her eyes heavy with worry. Their two children, Emma and Noah, sleep upstairs, unaware of the chaos about to invade their sanctuary. James stands by the window, his silhouette tense, his mind replaying the auditorium's roar. The faces of William Hayes and Daniel Reed twisted with defeat. But victory, he knows, comes with a price. A sudden crash shatters the quiet glass, exploding inward as a brick smashes through the living room window. Sarah gasps, leaping to her feet, her hands flying to her mouth. James spins his heart, pounding his eyes, locking on the jagged hole where the storm now pours in. Rain soaks the carpet, and the brick lies ominously on the floor, wrapped in a crumpled note. He crosses the room in 3 strides, his movements swift but controlled, and snatches the paper. The words scrawled in jagged ink hit like a punch. "Stop now, or your kids die." The racial slur that follows burns into his mind, a vile echo of the hatred he's fighting. Taped to the note is a photo Emma and Noah at their school playground, their smiles innocent, unaware of the camera's sinister gaze. Sarah's voice breaks a sob tearing from her throat. "James, what is this?" She cries, her eyes wide with terror. She grabs the photo, her hands trembling, her breath ragged. "Our babies. They're watching our babies." Her voice rises, panic overtaking her, and she clutches James's arm. "You have to stop this, James. Please. It's not worth it." Her words are a plea raw and desperate, born from a mother's fear. James's chest tightens his anger, a coiled snake, but he pulls her close, his arms a shield against the storm outside and within. "I won't let them hurt us," he says, his voice low, steady, a promise carved in stone. "I swear it, Sarah." He guides her to the couch, his hand gentle but firm, and kneels beside her. "Stay here," he says, his eyes locking with hers, conveying a strength he forces himself to feel. He steps to the shattered window, scanning the darkness beyond the rain, blurring his vision. The street is empty, the storm swallowing any trace of the culprit, but James knows who's behind this. William and Daniel, their pride wounded, their power stripped, have sunk to a new low. This isn't just a threat, it's a declaration of war, a coward's attempt to break him by targeting his family. But James Carter doesn't break. He pulls out his phone, his fingers steady, despite the rage coursing through him, and dials Thomas Brooks. The veteran officer answers on the first ring, his voice alert despite the late hour. "Chief, what's wrong?" Thomas asks, sensing the urgency. James's words are clipped precise. "Someone threw a brick through my window. A note with a threat against my kids. I need security here now." Thomas doesn't hesitate. "I'm on it. I'll bring a team. Stay with your family." James nods, though Thomas can't see it, and hangs up. He turns to Sarah, who's clutching the photo, tears streaming down her face. He kneels again, taking her hands, his voice soft but unyielding. "We're going to be okay," he says. "I'll protect you, all of you." Upstairs, Emma's small voice calls out, stirred by the noise. "Daddy," she says, her footsteps pattering down the stairs. James meets her halfway, scooping her into his arms, her warmth, a reminder of what's at stake. "Just a storm, sweetheart," he says, his voice a calm anchor. "Go back to bed. I've got you." She nods, trusting him, and he carries her upstairs, tucking her in with a kiss. Noah sleeps on oblivious, and James lingers, watching their peaceful faces. The threat against them is a knife to his heart, but it sharpens his resolve. He won't let fear dictate his fight. Thomas arrives within minutes, his patrol car pulling up with 2 officers, their faces grim but focused. They sweep the perimeter, flashlights cutting through the rain, searching for evidence. Thomas steps inside his coat, dripping, his eyes scanning the broken window. "This is low even for them," he says, his voice thick with disgust. "We'll get a team here round the clock, Chief. Your family's safe." James nods, his jaw tight. "I want this traced," he says. "I know it's them. We need proof." Thomas meets his gaze, a silent agreement passing between them. They're not just fighting for James, they're fighting for a department, a community, a future free from this poison. James leads Thomas to the kitchen, away from Sarah's trembling form. "They're desperate," he says, his voice low, controlled. "They think they can scare me off. They're wrong." Thomas nods, his expression resolute. "We've got your back, James, whatever it takes." The officers outside report no immediate clues. The storm has washed away tracks, but James knows this is just the beginning. William and Daniel have crossed a line, and he'll make sure they pay for it. He thinks of the evidence he's gathered, the stories of their victims, and now this a direct attack on his home, his heart. Sarah watches from the doorway, her eyes red but fierce. "Be careful, James," she says, her voice steadying. He crosses to her, his hand cupping her face. "I will," he says, "but I can't stop. Not now." She nods, her fear giving way to trust, a shared strength binding them. The storm rages on, but James stands firm, a beacon in the darkness. Will James bow to the threat against his family? With his loved ones in danger, James launches a covert hunt to bring William and Daniel down. The police station's surveillance room is a claustrophobic box of flickering monitors and stale air, lit by the cold glow of screens casting shadows on the walls. Keyboards hum softly, and the faint buzz of static crackles through headsets. It's well past midnight, and the tension is a living thing, coiling around James Carter, Thomas Brooks, and their new ally Robert Miller, a sharp-eyed officer with a quiet intensity. Outside, the town streets are slick with rain. neon signs reflecting off wet asphalt, the night alive with secrets. James sits before a monitor, his face etched with focus, his fingers steady on the controls. The threat against his family burns in his mind, a wound that fuels his every move. He's not just a chief, now he's a hunter, tracking prey who've gone too far. Thomas adjusts his headset, his voice low but urgent. "Got something," he says, tapping the screen. A recorded call plays, William Hayes's gravelly voice, unmistakable, laced with desperation. "Find someone who can hit Carter's place hard," he says to an unknown contact. "Make it hurt. He needs to back off." The words are a gut punch, confirming James's suspicions. William and Daniel, humiliated and cornered, are planning something far worse than a brick through a window. James's jaw tightens, his eyes narrowing, but his voice remains steady. "We need to move fast," he says. "Find out who they're meeting." Robert nods, his fingers flying over a keyboard, pulling up GPS data from Daniel's patrol car. "He's on the move," Robert says. "South side near the old warehouse district." The trio mobilizes, slipping out of the station into the rain-soaked night. James drives, his hands gripping the wheel, the wipers battle in the downpour. Thomas rides shotgun, his face grim, while Robert monitors a tracking app in the back. The streets are a maze of shadows, streetlights flickering, the town's underbelly exposed. They spot Daniel's car parked near a derelict lot, its engine idling. A hooded figure leans into the window, their conversation obscured by the rain. James pulls over, his heart pounding, his instincts sharp. "That's our guy," he says, his voice a low growl. "We stop this now. The plan is simple but risky. Intercept the meeting, get answers, and prevent an attack on his family." They approach on foot, moving silently through the rain, their boots splashing in puddles. The air is heavy with the smell of wet concrete and danger. James leads, his eyes locked on Daniel's car, his body tense but controlled. As they near, the hooded figure spots them bolting into an alley. Daniel slams his car into gear, tires screeching, but James is faster. He sprints, cutting off the vehicle, his flashlight blinding Daniel through the windshield. Out of the car, James shouts, his voice cutting through the storm. Daniel hesitates, his face pale, then shoves the door open, his hands raised but his eyes wild. "You're done, Carter," he yells, lunging forward, his fist swinging. James dodges, grabbing Daniel's arm and pinning him against the car, the metal cold against his back. The struggle is brief but fierce. Daniel's desperation no match for James's resolve. Thomas and Robert close in, restraining the hooded figure who drops a burner phone into the mud. "Who hired you?" James demands, his voice a blade. The man, a local thug with a rap sheet, spits but says nothing. Thomas kneels, retrieving the phone, its screen cracked but functional. "We'll trace it," he says, his eyes meeting James's. Daniel, panting, glares at James, his defiance crumbling. "You're making a mistake," he mutters, but his voice lacks conviction. The rain pours harder, washing away his bravado, leaving only a man caught in his own trap. Back at the station, Robert rallies other officers, his voice steady but fierce. "William and Daniel have crossed a line," he says in the break room, his words carrying to a small group of colleagues. "They're not just corrupt, they're dangerous. We can't stand with them anymore." His conviction sways the room officers, nodding, their loyalty shifting. The tide is turning, and William and Daniel's influence is fading fast. Meanwhile, James's phone buzzes a blocked number. He answers, and William's voice snarls through the line, thick with rage. "You'll lose everything, Carter," he says, his words a venomous promise. "Your job, your family gone." James's response is cold, unyielding. "You've already lost," he says, hanging up his eyes, burning with purpose. The surveillance room hums again as James Thomas and Robert analyze the burner phone's data. It links to a known associate of William, a piece of the puzzle falling into place. The threat against James's family is real, but so is his determination. He thinks of Sarah, Emma, and Noah safe for now under guard, but vulnerable until this ends. The chase in the rain was a warning. William and Daniel are desperate, willing to escalate to violence to cling to power. But James is ready, his plan taking shape, his resolve a fortress against their threats. He leans back, the monitor's glow reflecting in his eyes. The station feels different now, its walls no longer a shield for corruption, but a battleground for justice. Robert's words have spread, and officers are choosing sides, their whispers a growing chorus of support. James knows the risks he's putting everything on the line, but retreat isn't an option. The night stretches on the rain a relentless drumbeat, but James is undeterred. He's closing in, and William and Daniel are running out of places to hide. Can James stop William and Daniel's deadly plot in time? As the danger escalates, James prepares for a final confrontation to end the threat. The main hall of the police station is a crucible of light and sound, its high ceiling amplifying the murmur of a packed crowd. Harsh spotlights blaze down, illuminating rows of residents, their faces etched with anticipation alongside officers whose uniforms seem to weigh heavier today. Reporters cluster at the edges, cameras flashing their lenses, hungry for the moment about to unfold. The air hums with expectation, thick with the scent of polished wood and nervous sweat. James Carter stands at the center of it all, his chief's badge gleaming, his posture unyielding. He's not just a man today, he's a force, a reckoning for a department stained by corruption. The crowd senses it, their eyes locked on him, waiting for the hammer to fall. Thomas Brooks and Robert Miller flank him, their presence a quiet bulwark of loyalty. Across the room, William Hayes and Daniel Reed sit, their faces taut, their defiance a fragile shell. James steps to the podium, his movements deliberate, his eyes scanning the sea of faces. His voice, when he speaks, is a low, resonant thunder, each word carrying the weight of truth. "We're here to end a chapter of shame," he says, pausing to let the silence amplify his words. "This department has harbored those who've betrayed their oath, who've used their power to harm, not protect. That ends now." The crowd leans forward, their breath held as James raises a remote, the screen behind him flickering to life. The video begins, its audio sharp and damning. William's voice snarls through the speakers, cold and deliberate, hiring a thug to take care of Carter's family. His words drip with venom, laced with a racial slur that makes the crowd gasp, a collective intake of breath like a wave breaking. The footage shifts, showing William berating a black resident, his face twisted with contempt. James freezes the frame, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. "This is not justice," he says, his tone unwavering. "This is hatred cloaked in a badge." He presents documents next, sworn statements detailing Daniel's assaults, each page a nail in their coffin. The crowd murmurs anger, rising a tide of outrage swelling. William lurches to his feet, his face crimson, his voice a desperate roar. "You're framing me," he shouts, lunging toward the podium, his fists raised. "You filthy liar." The slur he hurls next is a raw wound, drawing shocked cries from the crowd. Security officers move swiftly, their hands clamping onto William's arms, pinning him back. His struggle is frantic, his eyes wild, but the guards hold firm, their faces impassive. James doesn't flinch. His gaze locked on William, a silent promise of accountability. The crowd's anger surges, residents shouting their voices a chorus of defiance against years of fear. William's rage collapses into futility, his body slumping as the reality sinks in. Daniel, seated beside him, is a different story. His face is pale, his eyes hollow, his bravado shattered. He rises his hands, trembling, and his voice cracks as he speaks. I didn't mean for it to go this far." He stammers his words of plea. "I followed him. I'm sorry." The confession is a shock, a fracture in the facade he's clung to. He sinks back, his head in his hands, begging for mercy that won't come. The crowd watches, some with pity, others with disgust, but all feel the weight of his fall. James's expression remains steady, his voice calm but resolute. Justice doesn't forgive hatred. He says his word's a verdict. It demands accountability. The senior commander, a stern woman with gray streaks in her hair, steps forward, her face grim but resolute. "Officers Hayes and Reed," she says, her voice echoing through the hall. "You're under arrest for abuse of power and conspiracy." The crowd erupts applause, thundering residents standing their cheers a release of pent-up pain. The commander nods to security, who cuff William and Daniel, their faces a study in defeat. William's eyes burning with impotent rage, Daniel's vacant with despair. As they're led away, the crowd's roar grows a tidal wave of validation for James's fight. James raises a hand, quieting the room, his voice steady but charged with purpose. "This isn't just about two men," he says, his eyes sweeping the crowd. "It's about a promise to you, to this community, to ourselves. We will rebuild with honor, with trust." The words resonate, a vow that binds the room together. Residents nod, their faces alight with hope, while officers, some hesitant, join the applause, their claps a tentative step toward redemption. Thomas and Robert exchange a glance, their pride in James unspoken but clear. The hall feels alive, transformed by the truth laid bare. James steps back, his heart pounding but his resolve unshaken. He thinks of the nights spent building this case, the voices that trusted him, the family he's sworn to protect. This moment is a victory, but it's also a beginning. The crowd's cheers are a beacon lighting the path forward, but he knows William and Daniel's defeat has sparked a dangerous ember. Their eyes, as they're led away, carry a promise of vengeance, a shadow that lingers even in triumph. He closes the meeting, his voice a steady anchor. "We move forward together," he says, his words a call to action. No more silence, no more fear, only justice. The crowd rises, their applause a testament to a new era. James stands tall, his mission clear, his fight far from over. Can James extinguish William and Daniel's cruelty for good? With justice served, James begins to heal the community's trust, building a new future. The community center glows with warm light, its walls adorned with children's artwork and faded banners from long-ago events. Folding tables line the room, covered with coffee urns and trays of homemade cookies, a small gesture of unity in a town scarred by division. Residents fill the space, their faces a mix of hope and skepticism, while officers, some in uniform, others in casual clothes, mingle awkwardly, their presence a tentative olive branch. James Carter stands at the front, his voice a steady beacon, his eyes warm but resolute. Sarah sits nearby, her posture relaxed, a quiet pride replacing her earlier fear. Thomas Brooks and Robert Miller move through the crowd, their nods encouraging, their presence a bridge between past and future. The air hums with possibility, a fragile hope taking root after years of mistrust. James raises a hand, quieting the room, his voice clear and earnest. We're here to listen," he says, pausing to meet the eyes of those before him. "To hear your stories, your pain, and to build something better together." A woman, her hair gray and her hands trembling, stands, her voice cracking but strong. "My son was beaten," she says, tears welling, "by one of your officers for nothing, just walking home. He was scared to leave the house after that." The room falls silent, her words a raw wound. James nods, his face etched with empathy. "That ends now," he says. "We're implementing body cameras, anti-bias training, and accountability measures. No one will suffer like your son again." The crowd murmurs some nodding, others wiping tears, her story a spark that ignites shared pain. A young boy, no older than 10, tugs at his mother's sleeve and steps forward, his eyes wide with admiration. "Chief Carter," he says, his voice small but clear. "I want to be a hero cop like you when I grow up." The room softens, a ripple of smiles breaking the tension. James kneels, his smile genuine, his voice warm. "You'll be better than me," he says, ruffling the boy's hair. "You'll protect people with heart." The crowd claps, the moment a flicker of light in a long darkness. Sarah catches James's eye, her smile a quiet affirmation, her fear replaced by belief in his mission. Officers join residents in patrols, their steps tentative but purposeful, a new bond forming where fear once stood. Can James erase the community's deep-seated fear? The scene shifts to the station's office at dusk, golden light streaming through the windows, bathing the room in a warm glow. James sits at his desk, files stacked high, his face tired but resolute. Thomas and Robert enter, their expressions serious. A letter has arrived, its envelope marked with a prison stamp, William Hayes's name scrawled in the corner. The words inside are venomous, a final threat of revenge laced with the same hatred that fueled his crimes. James reads it once, his jaw tight, then holds it over a candle, watching the paper curl and burn. He's done, he says, his voice steady, unshaken. They both are. Thomas nods, his eyes fierce. "The station's changing," he says. "Officers are mentoring kids now, not intimidating them." Robert adds, "Complaints are down. People feel safer." The transformation is real, a testament to James's fight. The final scene unfolds in a tranquil community park, the sun dipping below the horizon, casting long shadows across the grass. Residents gather, their faces alight with hope as James speaks from a makeshift stage. "We're building a police force that serves you," he says, his voice ringing with conviction, one that listens, protects, and heals. A young woman steps forward, her voice steady but emotional. "I used to cross the street when I saw a cop," she says. "Now I don't have to. Your changes stopped the harassment." The crowd cheers their applause, a thunderous affirmation, a community reborn. Sarah, Emma, and Noah join James, their presence a symbol of his triumph over fear. Thomas and Robert stand nearby, their pride unspoken but clear. The park feels alive, a beacon of possibility. Can James's legacy withstand the shadow of hatred? James closes his speech, his voice a quiet promise. "This is our town," he says, his eyes sweeping the crowd. "Together we've faced the truth and chosen justice." The crowd roars, their voices a chorus of unity. He steps down, his family at his side, their hands clasped tightly. The letter from William, now ash, is a fading echo, its threat powerless against the change James has wrought. The officers who once stood silent now guide community programs, their roles redefined. The residents, once fearful, walk taller, their trust restored. James's journey from a humiliated man in the snow to a leader who reshaped a system stands as a testament to courage. His legacy is not just a reformed department, but a community united a proof that one person's resolve can dismantle injustice. The lesson rings clear: integrity and bravery can change even the most broken systems, leaving the audience inspired, satisfied, and moved. James's journey proves one steadfast person can transform a system, inspiring lasting justice. As the sun sets over the park, James Carter stands with his family, their silhouettes framed against a sky ablaze with hope. His journey from a freezing night of humiliation to a leader who reshaped a broken system echoes in the cheers of a community reborn. He faced hatred, threats, and fear, yet his courage carved a path to justice, proving that one voice steadfast and true can topple even the deepest-rooted wrongs. This town, once divided, now stands united, a testament to what's possible when integrity prevails. What challenges have you faced that demanded unwavering resolve, and how did you overcome them? Share your stories in the comments below. We'd love to hear them. If this tale of triumph moved you, hit that like button, share it with friends, and subscribe for more stories that inspire and ignite. Until next time, keep fighting for what's right.